So this week in class, Chapter 4, we're going to talk about magazines. Cosmopolitan's ability to reinvent itself repeatedly over the last 125 years testifies to the remarkable power of magazines as a mass medium to both adapt to and shape American society and culture. Cosmo began in 1886, and at the time it focused on childcare. So it was a woman's magazine that focused on how to raise your children. In 1905, Hearst took it and made it a muckraking magazine, which focused on exposing businesses and governments of corruption. By the 1960s, big jump there, Helen Gurley Brown came in and changed everything by reinventing the magazine to a strong, sexually liberated women's magazine. Cosmo's slogan, fun, fearless, and female. So magazines are different from newspapers in that they get more involved in social issues. Education, abolition, women's suffrage, the Civil War, it was all part of the beginnings of magazines. More than 1,900 magazines are published in the United States, and they reflect and create what's going on in American life. Let's talk a little bit about the early history of magazines. European origins. 1704 was the first political magazine called The Review. And then there was Gentleman's Magazine in London in 1731. It's not what you think. Gentlemen's magazines are something different today, but it was the first magazine to be termed magazine, and really all it was reprints of articles from newspapers and books and political pamphlets that they put all together in one place for people to read. And here's a look at what it looked like back then. Colonial magazines. They developed slowly because there wasn't many people that could read. So once the printing press advanced and the middle class started growing, magazines became more popular, but it was a slow go at first. The first American magazine was launched in 1741, and it was called American Magazine. And it was one of two magazines. The other was General Magazine and Historical Chronicle by Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin seemed to have his hand in just about everything in those days. Early magazines examined questions like how taxation should work, should the colonies rule themselves, how should we treat the Indians, and who should have access to our public schools. These were all questions people were asking back in 1741. And here's American Magazine. It's great when they brought color in. A lot more exciting, huh? United States in the 1800s. They had specialty magazines specific to religious ideas, literary periodicals, law and medical professional magazines that told of new drugs coming out or new laws being written. And then there were general interest magazines. That was the Saturday Evening Post. That covered everything, the general interest of the people. And there were women's magazines, Ladies Magazine and Good Day's Ladies Book. That was a very popular magazine at the time. And here's Good Day. The late 1800s increased literacy and public education, so they decided to let everyone get educated. Improvements in printing and postal technology, a big one. They decided to let the magazine have a discount in postage so that they could get it out to more people. And the advent of illustrations. We needed pictures. We all love pictures in magazines. How many times are you sitting in the hairdresser waiting to get your appointment and you're just looking through the pictures? I never read the articles. I'd have to put my glasses on. Okay, so magazines of note at the time, here's a few of them. The Youth's Companion. The Youth's Companion was a big one because Francis Bellamy printed the first version of the Pledge of Allegiance in 1892 in that magazine, in the Youth's Companion. Until then, it was not heard of. It was originally published in Youth's Magazine, and Bellamy had hoped that it would be a pledge for citizens in any country, but it was adopted by our country. Modern American magazines. Well, distribution costs fell because of the Postal Act of 1879, lowered the postage rates for magazines so that it was equal to newspaper delivery, so they could be on the same footing. By the late 1800s, advertising began to soar. We'll get into advertising in another chapter, but it was the perfect place for people to sell their goods because, especially specific magazines, like the medical magazine or the law magazine, they could sell specific products to people. They knew who their audience was. It captured their attention, and it had a large readership. And it built a national marketplace for our country. Magazine circulation flourished from 1870 to the 1890s. They went from 1,200 magazines to 4,500, and then by 1905, 600 different magazines in the United States. Muckrakers. This always sounds like such a bad term, and actually it really wasn't. Teddy Roosevelt coined the term in 1906. It was given to reporters who dug down deep into the muck to get a good story. They weren't necessarily lying or cheating. They just really dug into the muck to create a good story for people. It was considered an early form of investigative reporter. Leads to much needed reforms too. Like people that dug found out that our foods may not have been properly legislated. So we brought in the Pure Food and Drug Act, the Meat Inspection Act. That came from Ladies' Home Journal, both of those. So they did investigative reports finding out that there weren't enough laws dedicated to our foods and the foods we eat. So something was done about it. General interest magazines are popular from the 1920s to the 1950s. Investigative journalism and broad topics that everyone could enjoy. And then photojournalism gave it a big boost. The visual was better than listening to radio. You got to see the pictures. The success of general interest magazines. Saturday Evening Post was hugely successful. It was the first magazine to reach 2 million in circulation. Reader's Digest, still around. Most popular magazine during the 1980s. Time magazine left and came back. Interpretive journalism using reporter-researcher teams. And they have a huge circulation too. And Life magazine, that was the big one. It was oversized. I think they brought it back and brought it down to size, but it was that big, beautiful magazine. And it was one that you kept, and you wanted to have a copy of Life magazine, especially if it had a really cool cover. And here's some examples of each of those magazines. So, the decline of the general interest magazine. Advertising money shifted to television. That happened in the late 50s and into the 60s, and even more so as television progressed. Production costs of magazines increased because people wanted better pictures, clearer pictures, nice colors, and the postal rates increased. So new types of magazines were born, and these were specialty magazines, like TV Guide. If you're as old as me, you remember you couldn't wait for that TV Guide to come in the mail every week, so you knew what you were going to watch. And every single listing was listed in your TV Guide. And then there were stories with your favorite stars on both ends. People magazine in 1974 took care of the celebrity craze, but you knew you can trust them. They were honest, real stories, not like the National Enquirer or those kind of magazines. And here's some examples. Current trend towards highly specialized magazine or niche magazines. They have a narrow audience, but they know they're hitting their right audience, and they have advertisers that want to work with them. Groups defined by their profession, lifestyle, gender, age, ethnic group, or your hobbies and interests. Here's some examples. Men's and Women's Magazine, obviously. Playboy's a man's magazine. Ladies' Home Journal, Women's Day. We used to have Playgirl. I don't even think that's around anymore. Entertainment magazines and sports magazines. Sports Illustrated, one of the most popular magazines ever. And Rolling Stone, National Geographic, all popular magazines. And then age-specific. They had highlights for children and AARP for my mom and dad. Not me yet, thank goodness. There's elite type magazines like The New Yorker. I got that for a while. I had it delivered because it made me feel important, and then I realized it's too expensive to feel important, so I stopped getting it. Minority, like Essence, Advocate, Latina, trade magazines, alternative magazines, and then there's the supermarket tabloid. My father has a subscription to the National Enquirer and believes everything they say. He'll actually call me up and say, "Did you hear so-and-so was divorcing Hoosie Watts," and all that stuff. And it's like, "I read it in the Enquirer. It's true." And here's some great examples of some of those kind of magazines. Online magazines. The internet allows magazines to extend and maintain reach when print becomes insufficient or too expensive. If you have a chance, look at Popular Mechanics. They have an interactive tie-in with their online with their regular magazine into their online. They have videos, tutorials, things you can do. HGTV now is coming out with a magazine. I don't know if I'm an HGTV fan, so I see all the commercials for it. Some print magazines are now only online because it works better. They have a subscription or they give it away for free and they make their money in advertising. Conversely, some cable networks publish print magazines to add to their like AMC has their own magazine that you can purchase and get a subscription to go along with the movies they show. And then there are online-only formats like Salon and Slate, which are called webazines. Let's check this out.
The magazine industry is really under stress these days. Videomaker is a 22-year-old publication aimed at video enthusiasts and semi-professionals. So maybe in the beginning of our company's development, there were just a very small number of magazines competing with us. And magazines, generally speaking, at that time were kind of a bottleneck in the market, that if there were a bunch of enthusiasts who were interested in making video or playing tennis, there weren't that many ways for people selling tennis rackets or selling video cameras to get to that marketplace. So magazines did a great job of kind of aggregating a community to create channels to sell products. But today, I'm sure that yesterday afternoon, Billy's Basement Bargain video website went up, and now we have our 150th competitor. So the bottom line is that special interest magazines, or these kind of affinity communities that have been relying upon paper as the medium, are under a tremendous amount of competition, under duress, because of really hundreds of small websites that can be launched with very little barriers to entry.
Guitar Player has at least 10 times as many readers, viewers on the web as we do actually buy the magazine every month. The magazine circulation, the print magazine circulation is about 150,000. That includes subscribers and people who buy us on the newsstand every month. The visits to the website monthly are in the million-plus category.
The convergence of media is central to what we do, and it's provided a tremendous opportunity for us, something that we've really been wanting to do for the 30 or 40 years we've been in publication. It's a lot easier to tell someone how to make a sound if you can have them hear the sound. And it's a lot easier to make a very complex piece of music software seem simple if you can just show someone where on this huge menu of choices they should just click to get the effect they want.
Magazine publishers are reacting to this pressure by jumping into more media. So first they went into events, face-to-face training. So it could be for the canoeing magazine. There's a little canoe show. We started in the events business several years ago. We had hands-on workshops for making video. Also, many magazine publishers have moved into the book space, so publishing books. Clearly, every magazine has a website.
I'm a media person, so having a Guitar Player television is a boon. It's not something that we were scared of, or, oh my God, we're being forced to do it. It's like, images, words, all that stuff works together. Why would anybody sit there and go, we're just going to be a print magazine?
Our dream is to become, in the case of Keyboard Magazine, the keyboard channel. It'll all be on the website. We're shooting our own lesson videos and editing them and posting them online. An essential element of our plan for success, transitioning into more and more of a web-based publication, is the weight that our brand does carry. The names of our publications say it all. guitar player, bass player, keyboard. If we had to come up with something new to communicate the same kind of things, it would be extremely difficult. So we are really hoping that just the very name of our brand can help us reach all those new community members that we haven't reached yet online.
So let's talk about the economics, the money in. Advertising, advertising, advertising. That's how they make their money. 50-50 ratio between ads and editorial content in a magazine. Top magazines charge $320,000 for a full-page ad. Strategies to retain advertisers. They do things like, okay, so a college football magazine or a football magazine, say an ESPN type magazine, they put an insert for their regional football or for their March Madness, and they just showed the schools in that area and what's going on with them. And that helps to make more money and sell more local advertising or regional advertising. The split run, where the editorial is the same, but the regional stories change. And then demographic editions, where special editions come out for a very high-end income market. These are to sell maybe high-end automobiles, homes, vacations, those sort of things. Newsstand and subscription sales. Renewals of subscription are 88% of sales, so they have to get them to renew. And then there's the evergreen subscriptions that auto-renew on your credit card. I don't know about you, but I don't like those at all. I won't order if they auto-renew. I always click off that box. And then there's controlled circulations. That's where a company or a sponsor, someone sponsors the entire magazine, and it's free to the reader. Like on the airlines when you're stuck on the plane and you need to read the magazine. And you'll see a lot of, for some reason, online dating services in those. But then there's the other magazine where you can just buy products, the In the Air Mall. That's a controlled circulation magazine. Money out, they have to develop the content. They need the staff. They have freelance writers, and then they have staff writers. Production, the paper, the machines, the layout, sales and marketing, and distribution. How are we going to get it out to the people? Magazines in a democratic society. Specialization means magazines no longer foster a national identity. The impact of dependence on advertising, that's huge. And will the advertisers then control the content of the magazines? Some publications view their readers as consumers first, which then, of course, slants a story. Magazines will inspire and contribute to the democratic debate. This can happen. We just have to make sure that our writers and our magazine editors stay upright and forthright, and they don't look at our readers as consumers. More magazines are available than TV channels. Magazines can unite people, and they have less of a deadline and pressure than television or newspapers. So the writers can really get into the story, fact check, and make sure things get done right. So here's your project for this week. It is the critical process for the magazine industry. I want you to answer these 3 sections in APA style formatting, which means double-spaced and referenced, please. And there is no forum this week. And you'll notice there's also a Chapter 2 in this week's work. There's no video chat for Chapter 2 because Chapter 2 isn't covered on the test. So that's just for your knowledge. It's in the book and we do go through it. So the test at the end of the week is on Chapters 1, 3, 4, and 9 for your knowledge, and it will open on Thursday and stay open till Sunday. It's a 30-question test, and I don't time it. So do the best you can. Have a great week. Bye-bye.